So yeah, we're finding a bit of a mix of people joining live and then people coming for the recording later. So we definitely love the live vibes. Thank you all for joining, those of you that are joining live. We do encourage that, but we obviously understand it if you want to listen to this recording later. So thank you for those of you that are doing that too. Let's give folks another couple of seconds to come on, and then we'll kick things off. To remind everybody as well, there are kind of two goals for us with this webinar series that we're doing. We want to get customers together. We just have lots of feedback all the time from our customers that you want to meet each other and share learnings. So for us, that's the big one, pulling customers together and learning from each other. And then we are also keen to share some of our latest features, the features that we're releasing on a really regular basis and that you might not have come across or used yet. So that is how we tend to split these calls up, getting a customer on, sharing, and then jumping into some features. So I think we'll kick things off. So I'm Helen, Head of People and Customer Experience at Kadence. Thank you again, everybody, for being on. We're going to try and keep to about 45 minutes. I think that's probably the max these days to keep folks' attention. So yeah, we'll try and do that 45 minutes from here. If you have any questions at any point, please put those in the chat. We'll be keeping an eye on those as we go through. So if you've got questions for our customer speakers today, please stick those in the chat as they're speaking and we'll take those. Same for when Stephen's presenting the features. Please just keep asking questions and we'll pull those out as we go. Okay, so the agenda for today is we're going to start with me. I'm going to give a quick state of the nation when it comes to hybrid. There's lots of noise going on out there, Amazon, WPP, etc. So just wanted to have a little nod to that. Then we're going to jump into the experience of our friends, David and Nick at Willis Towers Watson. And then we're going to jump over to Stephen, who's going to take us through some of our latest features. All right, so yeah, lots of noise out there right now, and we kind of just wanted to reassure folks that you're doing the right thing, you're in the right place when it comes to hybrid. Just all this noise about return to office, Amazon being the biggie, and this debate that's going on between Amazon and their employees that's going on very publicly. Most recently, we've got WPP saying that they would like their global staff to be in the office 4 days a week. I think we just want to remind everybody that for us, this debate is actually all about people experience, workplace experience, employee experience, and that hybrid is the right way to go. You'll see here we've got 90% of companies going hybrid internationally, 74% of employees saying they will leave companies that don't go hybrid. Much of this is pretty well known, but we really do want to start with it because we think it matters. $25 trillion of employee salaries are going hybrid, and $22 trillion of office space is going hybrid. So, you know, big stats, big numbers. Hybrid is not going anywhere anytime soon. And then I wanted to just pull out some stats from our own data. Again, this is to reassure you all. None of this is particularly mind-blowing, but we've seen since 2022 that in the US and the UK, which is where the vast majority of our customers are based, we're seeing employees coming into the office consistently now between 2 and 3 days a week in 2024. In 2022, it was 1 to 2 days a week. So 2 to 3 days continues to be the consistent number of days in the office, which is firmly in the hybrid camp. That's gone up from 1 to 2 days. And then Tuesday and Wednesday, again, not mind-blowing, not hugely surprising, but I think it's helpful for us to hear that if you have Tuesdays and Wednesdays as your most common days in the office, so do most of your counterparts around the world. We see, those 2 days consistently the busiest and the rest tapering off. And then some insight here from Nick Bloom, who you may have heard us talk about before. We're actually about to do a webinar with Nick, so watch out for an email on this one. Nick Bloom is a Stanford professor, largely known as Mr. Future of Work. Follow him on LinkedIn if you don't already. His data research says that employees value 2 to 3 days in the office, as much as an 8% pay rise. So again, back to this subject of people experience, employee experience, this really matters to keep your best people. 2 to 3 days being the equivalent of an 8% pay rise. So that level of flexibility really, really matters to people. If you find this kind of data helpful, or you would like to dig in some more, please contact your CX rep, because we have tons of data that we'd love to share with you, benchmarked across lots of organizations and sectors, but also we can dive more deeply into your own data. So please contact your CX rep if you have one. If you don't have a customer experience rep, contact cx@kadence.co. Great. Okay, so the theme for today's conversation is building a winning hybrid strategy. Again, we would argue focus on the people, focus on the people experience, the employee experience. I would like to hand over now to Kaya, who is one of our key account directors based in London. She looks after our largest accounts in Europe. And Kaya is going to introduce David and Nick, who will be taking us through their experience.
Great, thank you. Yeah, thanks, Helen. And thank you so much, Nick and David, for joining. I think it's always best if you introduce yourselves, but we have Nick here from London, or living in the UK, and David from the US, and so brings a really unique experience to this chat. So Nick, do you want to introduce yourself, and David?
Yeah, thank you. So as the slide says, we're responsible for sort of global strategy, workplace technology. So sort of critical in implementing the Kadence system globally. And then David.
So David Music, been part of Willis Towers Watson now, or WTW, for the last 8 years. As Nick said, our role is a couple of things, but it's all the technology that real estate and facilities teams utilize around the world. And it's also about working with our business to make sure that the real estate team has a global direction for what we're trying to do for colleagues, how we're trying to do it, and making sure that we have the right budget and tools to support a long-term vision for our workplaces.
Great. And for those of our customers on this webinar who don't know what Willis Towers Watson do you want to just give a quick background?
So we are a global insurance broking and consulting firm. We are pretty much everywhere around the world, 100 and something countries, 300 plus offices around the world, varying in size from large to small. So we cover pretty much, from a culture and types of employees, we run the gamut of about everything that you'd see in different types of offices. So it keeps us busy.
Sure must. And that's about 10,000 plus employees, is that right?
Closer to 50.
50, right, 10,000 plus, closer to 50. Excellent. Yeah, so, and I think that just gives some perspective, because I know we have all sorts of customers who've joined this call today. They come from sort of all sectors, sizes, locations. Some are smaller and local, some are global and growing. And I think that brings a really unique experience to this chat. Helen already sort of introduced the forum, but what we really are trying to build on here is, the community by which our customers learn from each other, the good, the bad, the ugly, as mentioned, with regards to hybrid working. And so I really wanted to kick off the conversation by understanding how you guys have navigated a hybrid strategy that works for you with your global presence that you just mentioned and the number of employees that you have, and what your sort of did you figure it out right away? Did you go through some trial and error? What was sort of your route to discovering what works for you?
We certainly did not figure anything out right away, and we're still, much like everybody on this call, I'm sure, trying to figure out the right path forward for the next several years. But we were fortunate in that pre-COVID, we had implemented an agile working model for 75% plus of our real estate portfolio and colleagues. So before the pandemic, we were already in a no private offices, shared desks, reservation lists, no booking tools. And we had built what we called agile offices at the time, or agile workplaces, and had that as a kind of a cultural standard globally already for our colleagues. So when the pandemic hit, we didn't have to do the first thing that most companies ended up doing, which was implementing that in a world that was dealing with the pandemic and this new definition of hybrid and everything else. So we had a little bit of a jump start in terms of not having to deal with the first messy step of going from assigned desk private offices to a flexible office. Now, with that said, 2022, when we started, just like everybody else, working through a hybrid model, we did land in a place, fortunately, I believe, where there's no global mandate for our colleagues where you must be in an office X number of days. There's no global standard that says everyone in this office must do this. Our leadership, and this comes from one of our biggest consulting practices, is HR consulting. And so we talk as a business with large companies every day about what's happening with their workforces and how they're thinking about this, which allows us to inform our own direction. And so what we did was we gave managers the ability to have flexibility within their teams to say, hey, we're doing this type of project work. We're working with these types of things right now. I need you in the office this week and next week. But then maybe 3 weeks down the road, it changes again. So a lot of flexibility, a lot of trust built into the model. But with that said, every country ends up looking different within this very flexible model within our world. So there is no one answer in our world in terms of what is hybrid. There's not a day of the week. There's not a multiple days of the week. We have offices where it's Tuesday, Thursday are the peak. We have offices where Wednesday's the peak. All the data, Helen, that you were just showing speaks pretty similar to what we see in our world. We take a very data-driven approach to understanding workplace, but even with all that data, we're struggling to figure out what does space look like 3 years from now? Because it's not just an us decision that we're trying to work through. It's all of the flexible working providers are still changing their business models in the marketplace. All of the landlords are beginning to introduce whole new leasing models and flexible options within traditional real estate. And so there's this very much give and take direction on what's going on with hybrid for our world. And unfortunately, it's an exciting time, but it's also a very challenging time to figure out what the right answer is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that absolutely makes sense. And do you think that there is a way of measuring your employees' success by, like, as in, is the flexibility winning within your culture and within your organization? Or has there been surveys to state that people would rather have, know when their teams are coming in and kind of a little bit more transparency? How do you guys measure what's working and what's not, if it's as open as it is?
A great question that's incredibly challenging to answer.
Sorry, I put you on the spot.
It goes back to, how do you measure productivity? From a workplace standpoint, the answer is you really can't measure it accurately. So we end up using a couple different things. Number one, how's the business doing? Is the business succeeding? Are they winning business? Are they maintaining what they're meant to be doing? Are their people continuing to stay employed, and we're recruiting at a high rate? All those kinds of HR things that real estate's always been tied to.
Right.
But then second, I use what we affectionately call the noise meter. How loud are managers or colleagues in a particular office about their environment? The one thing anybody who's worked even closely with real estate will know is that if somebody doesn't like their workplace, they will let you know in a very loud way. And so when we hear this noise coming through, we have to kind of figure out, is it one person or is it actually a problem with the office? And so there's a lot of that kind of just figuring out as you go along of what's right, what's wrong. We take a very evolutionary approach to our real estate. So when we implement a new project, we try something new. We'll implement a new furniture type. We'll implement a new space type, and see how that does. And if it goes well and we don't have a whole lot of noise or we see a lot of utilization out of it, we'll then try that in the next project as well. So it's a lot of testing as we go, and it's a lot of using the data to drive us, but surveys less so, but noise very much so.
Right. And one question that's come up with my customers when I've alluded to this conversation is some people or some customers and organizations which who really embody the flexible mentality of not instilling any kind of mandated time. Some of them struggle to bring people into the office, particularly on a Monday or a Friday. And I feel I've experienced with my customers, at least, all sorts of trying from lunch vouchers to after work drinks to anything like that. Well, how do you, from a real estate perspective, or maybe you don't, how do you manage the sort of influx and variety of when people then come into the office?
So we take a very pragmatic approach to occupancy. We measure how many people are in the office, both through badges and through sensors, anonymous, just occupancy detecting sensors. When we build a new office, our goal is to build it for larger than the biggest colleague occupancy day that's going to exist during a year. So if we build enough desks to handle the largest day of the year, for us as a real estate team, we know that office isn't going to break when they hold a town hall, when they bring in a large client, when they have multiple things that all happen at the same time, when the business is seasonally peaking and they have a lot of things that are happening. If we build an office for that, then we're good. We had to do all those Monday, Friday conversations as well. Around, well, nobody's in on Monday and Friday. Well, there's really, to your point, Kaya, no way to bring people in on a Monday, Friday. You can offer them free food, you can offer them free parking, you can offer them vouchers, you can offer them movie tickets. They'll show up on the Monday when they want the movie, but they're not there to work, they're there to get the voucher. They'll show up on the day that there's a really nice lunch, but again, they're coming in right before lunch and leaving right after lunch, in what we've seen in across the industry. It's one of those things where we've just made the decision that measuring Monday and Friday occupancy wasn't worth it, because it's kind of like a Saturday, Sunday. Yes, we're technically paying for an office for 3 days a week, but the way we look at it is, if the business is getting done, then is it a problem that we only have people occupying it in peak volumes 2 or 3 days a week? And we came back to just, it's not that big of a problem. Nick?
Yeah, and I think one of the things we've noticed, or we've sort of uncovered, is that the reality of it is that perhaps Mondays and Fridays never have been busy. This model that we're now adopting has just revealed the fact that nobody came in on a Monday and a Friday regardless, and it was just that no one was looking. So I think this is an interesting thing to get your head round as part of the hybrid model.
Yeah, very much so. And that is really interesting. I think I did read an article somewhere recently that said, the most people were actually working 4 days a week in the office and 1 day at home, at least before. And now some of the fear is that those people or those companies and organizations that want full time back, it's almost reverting back, a very long time ago to 2010 or 2011, when that flexibility wasn't there. So we're almost going a little bit back. So that is really interesting. So Nick, I have a question for you. With respect to workplace technology, you have a unique approach in how you've deployed Kadence. And I wanted to ask if you could elaborate on what you've done today and how you've communicated this with your employees.
Yes, yeah, we do. So we were hearing noise through the hybrid sort of approach that people wanted to know when colleagues were going to be in the office. But other than arranging a meeting or specifically contacting someone to say, are you going to be on Tuesday? Are you going to be on Friday? When are you going to be in? That nobody really had anywhere to go to find out when they were going to be in, because we don't have a desk booking policy. We don't have a mandatory, you've got to be in this day, that day. So we looked at Kadence. One, we like the simplicity, and two, we like the integration into Teams. So it kind of met with our sort of basic requirements. We wanted to keep something really simple, really easy, and base it within a system that we use all the time. So we adopted Kadence largely as a system whereby people can indicate when they're going to be in the office. So they can do that, you know, if you're going to be in Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, brilliant, you can put that in and you're regular. But if you come in once in a blue moon, you can also use Kadence to say that that's when you're going to be in. And then obviously your colleagues or your teammates or your manager or whoever it may be can see when you're going to be in the office. But I think that the absolute critical piece to our approach is that we have not mandated this. It is entirely optional. So we heard this noise and we thought we would introduce this. And this goes back to David's point of evolution and adapting to what we're hearing and how we're hearing it, is that we introduced this and we've let it grow completely organically. We've just said to people, here is a tool. If you want to use it, go ahead. It will be helpful for some people and not necessarily for others. So for example, a really small team probably doesn't use Kadence very often because they know exactly when somebody's going to be in. Whereas a bigger team, when there's more people coming and going, and we'll use it a lot more often. Hence the reason for not mandating it. We want people, and to be honest, you don't always want to tell people when you're going to be in the office. You know, there are days when you want to go in and just be completely anonymous that you're there. So again, that works.
And the problem statement that we were trying to solve for, I think, is important to clarify, which is the noise that Nick was talking about that we heard was that colleagues were coming into the office and they were finding that it was completely unproductive because they were there on the days that nobody that they were working with was also in the office. So what this allowed us to do was specifically let those colleagues know when the people that they work closest with were coming in, to make sure that when they choose to come to the office, it was the most productive day for them possible.
Right, exactly. And that is predominantly what we've been, focused so much on building with providing Kadence statuses and updates and things like that, your homepage, so you can actually liaise and see team cadences. So that's really good to hear. And you'd say on, we've seen that your account and your success with Kadence has grown. Would you say that it's applied and implemented, maybe used differently by your different offices? I mean, you do have a few different offices by us, and we're still looking to grow more. But just to nod on that point where you mentioned that, you have 300 offices and it's no single single method for all the different offices. It's a little bit variety there. So would you say that the way that Kadence is used is different depending on the culture of where you are based and the people, employees, or is that led by sort of central, or how would you say you implement it?
Well, I think to say how we implement it, we don't. That's kind of where we're coming from. So we leave it to the individual offices to work out how they would like to use it. But yes, they absolutely use it in different ways. So our London office uses it with much smaller teams. So within the large departments that come into the office, the individual teams use it to coordinate who's going to be in and when, whereas some of the smaller offices use it to work out who is actually going to be in the office at any given time. So you might have, let's say, our HCB coming in on Tuesday, and they coordinate it that way, and then someone else comes in on Wednesday.
Yeah,
that's not to say we are stopping anybody coming in on any given day. So that's that's the flexibility that we allow people to use. But yeah, absolutely. It's each individual office uses it. I mean, some, for example, if we look at Asia, where some people have very, very long commutes to come into the office, they don't want to travel for, let's say, 2 hours to turn up in the office, find none of their colleagues are there. And as David was saying, totally unproductive day, and then 2 hours to get home
Right.
again.
There is one universal use case though, which is planning who they want to spend social hour after work with. And that universally is something that we're seeing people use the system for, of, oh, it's going to be a Thursday, let's get the right team together to go out for dinner, drinks after work together to do our
Right.
social hangout time as well.
And
And that
that
also
is-
honestly is a driver of anybody coming into the office, and in general, it seems, is the social aspect still.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's so important to see, like, it's not a one size fits all, but it's gathering now. We're, a few years past COVID, we're now gathering data that actually brings us some of this intel to tell us, well, how team managers potentially, or leaders of organizations, can sort of manage the expectations. So I think that's really, really interesting that you say that. I guess one other question I just wanted to sort of throw at you was, do you have any advice or like lessons learned that you would give our customers, in terms of those that are maybe less able to be as flexible as you are, right? They bought a system, they're really trying to manage it a little bit differently. Okay, your experience is that you're lifting the parameters and it's a little bit more flexible, and maybe an organization of your size can do that more easily. But some, are really trying to seek guidance from other, like, from leaders within, or seeing, like, if their C-suite level executives are in a couple days a week, those are the days that they feel to be in. My question is, based on all of your experience and navigating the ropes of this workplace strategy, and using workplace technology to help develop your policy, do you have any sort of pointers that you would share with on this call, just to say what your biggest lesson learned has been trying to find your way?
That there are no easy paths to building a regional or global workplace model. But if you understand how your employees are working, what they're actually doing, not what they're supposed to do, but what they're actually doing, and build a workplace around what people actually do, you'll have a lot more success in building it around a policy that may or may not reflect how their people are actually working. And again, no magic bullets. A 2 to 3 day a week hybrid policy, you might find your employees actually working more than 2 or 3 days a week in the office, and therefore need to build bigger than your policy. I think more often, especially in the US, you have a 2 to 3 day hybrid policy, and you find your colleagues are working less than that. You also find a lot of colleagues who do skip weeks. They're in 3 days this week, none next week, and then 3 days the week after. All of those kind of behavioral patterns influence the way people use a workplace, influence the way they think about their workplace and how they're going to come into the workplace. There are no easy answers to this, other than, at the end of the day, as a real estate and facilities team, our job is to provide workplaces that make colleagues and the business effective, make them successful. And if we build offices that we know don't match how colleagues work, by definition, we're going to fail in our bigger mission. So that's where just always start with how the people work, how employees work, what they're doing day to day in the office, and you'll have a lot higher chance of success as you go forward. But then measure, monitor, build every project a little bit closer to what you're shooting for. And for better or worse, the business is always going to push. They're always going to challenge. They're always going to make life a little more difficult for what you're looking for, because they don't understand building a workplace for how people work, not just this year, but next year and the year after. So it's a process, it's a journey, it's a challenge. It's not easy. Nobody got into real estate because they thought it was going to be easy. But
Yeah,
it's worth it.
I think that's a great reminder. And it's, you know, speaking for some of my customers here, but I can imagine that it feels good to know that, you know, even the big dogs don't have it all figured out, and that it's a learning process, right? And that we're still navigating our ways through it. And you know, when Cadence can be helpful, as is in your case, with understanding who's in the office on what days, and then that's what we aim to do. So yeah, really appreciate your time and your answers to those questions. Helen, over to you, and I don't know if there's any questions from the audience here, if we're going to skip to Stephen, but thank you very much for your time, Nick and David. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, and
thank
I
you
will
all.
also say thank you, because we're learning a lot from you. And these guys know I keep coming on these calls and being like, can we do some more training? Is there something else that we can do to try, to try and drive adoption? And I just love the clarity that you have, you know, that there is a way that you do things at WTW and adoption's happening, and you know your people, and it's going the way that you intended it to go. So yeah, thanks for the learnings on that one too this way. Awesome. All right, so yeah, let's jump over to you, Stephen, and let's dive into some Kadence features.
Awesome. Thanks, Helen. Yeah, so we're diving into functionalities that were highlighted in a blog post. And I'm actually I'll put in the chat. Actually, I'm gonna put it in our company chat if you guys could paste this into the chat. So if you want to go back and reference what, you know, these features are, I'm going to highlight a few of them. So yeah, right off the start, we're really excited. We've been working on this workplace events. And let me take over sharing here. Actually, let me back up one moment. Oh, sorry, here we go. Share. Let's share this window first. So yeah, many companies they're are struggling. They want people to come in the office. They want to enable that, and they're having a problem with compliance, or they're struggling with lack of infrastructure, wasted in office space. And so yeah, the goal is to how do we drive more people into the office? And so the blog post really highlights these functionalities that you can leverage within Kadence. You know, number one is creating a desk booking system, which you're using. But really the idea, the end goal is to help others see who's coming in the office, to, you know, track attendance, you know, optimize the days that they're going in, and really avoid disappointment when they show up with no available spaces. Another thing that we really think pairs well with the desk booking system is a way to make sure that your colleagues and everybody, you know, around or traveling to an office can be aware of what's happening in an office. So visibility, even for those employees that may be 100% remote, you know, their decision to come in may be based off of who's coming in and also what's happening in the office. And so we've been working on this. We're calling it Kadence events, and it's going to be coming out here. And I know this quarter. I know that we're continuing to work on it and get some feedback. I wanted to quickly really just highlight some functionalities in Kadence that we're going to start off with this first version of events, and we're going to continue to build on events and add more functionality. But version 1 would really be, yeah, to help drive more traffic to the office, to get people, you know, give visibility to everybody. So allow admins to go in and create events. Also, we're going to be introducing a new role in Kadence called like the events coordinator, and they'll be able to, you can designate someone that can come in and make events as well. So yeah, really quickly, you'll be able to go and add pictures, add text, add links. I'm not going to complete this process, but yeah, you'll be able to designate dates and times, if it's on-site, virtual, or off-site, the locations or any relevant directions, the URL. And in the end, let me show what we have here. As an admin, I can see the events that have been created. I can also see who's RSVP'd. For the end user, let me pop over to the end user view. The end users will see the events on the sidebar. You can see I have 2 notifications for 2 new events. And then they can also, click on the event. They can RSVP on the right. So this is going to be the first version that we're going to be releasing. And we're really excited. There is some more details come along with this. And you should reach out to your customer experience team. If you don't know who your customer experience manager is, reach out to CX@Kadence for more details about when this is coming, as we get more and more information, and then how you could add it to your subscription. Another functionality that goes along in this blog post. So we said desk booking system. We're going to help create a drive to go into the office by adding events. There's some functionalities that our customers may not be aware of that we've already released. One of those is issuing booking credits. And so, you can issue booking credits to encourage attendance, to help reduce wasted bookings. To create credits, it's in the building section. As an admin, you can go and edit the building, and you'll see across the top booking credits. And you can do it by a resource. You can designate the number of credits each employee will have and what the credit window is. Another thing we're doing this year is we're going to help automate desk check-ins. Up until now, you've had to have a developer write a script to leverage our API to automate the check-in. But we're going to be, and this is just a super teaser for those on the call, but we are in the process of creating some functionality that would help automate this and also give you better true data of what's happening in your office without ever needing to deploy a sensor. So there's more to come. That's just the teaser. We're not to a point where I can share more than that, but just know that it's going to be awesome and easier to deploy, way easier to deploy. You can also, just to wrap up the other things in the blog that we'll share in a link right after I finish up, is create office neighborhoods. But the one thing with neighborhoods is, let me go discard this, is that we have this functionality for priority booking. We've seen a lot of our clients, instead of just continually to restrict the neighborhood only to the defined teams, to help open it up on the day of. So there is a functionality that has become really popular. If I go into the neighborhood, you can see priority booking. But if I set this to 0, then it will allow you to go set a time that would open up. So let's imagine that there's an executive neighborhood for the offices, but on the day of, if the executives aren't in by 10, let's open this up to anybody to book. And that's become really popular, instead of just always restricting the neighborhoods to only the certain groups that you define. The last points, using team scheduling to sync in office days. You can designate a team manager, and then the team manager can manage that team's cadence. And then, plan the purposeful events, which we talked about the events. So just to recap, desk booking system, booking credits. We're going to be having some more information coming on the automating check-ins for you, the neighborhood priority booking, team scheduling, and then more to come on events. But events is just right around the corner. So if you haven't already subscribed to the blog, I would subscribe to that. And I'd also, we have a product updates blog, and I'll share this link after the call, but you can go to the very bottom of the screen and subscribe. And that's my 10-minute what's coming, what we have. Anything that like any chats or any questions or anything I should dive into a little more? Helen, Kai, anything I should explain?
Yeah, I'm wondering if anybody has got anything at all that they want to ping us or Stephen whilst you've got him. He's one of our technical superstars here on the CX team, so it's great to have a moment of him. If not, then I did just want to say that you can contact cx@kadence.co if you've got questions after. Please feel free to do that. And we will be sharing the recording and a summary of the call on our blog as well. So last minute, see if anybody has any questions. If not, I think we'll wrap with a few minutes to spare. Thank you, everybody. And thanks again for Nick and David joining us. We really appreciate that.
Yes,
Thanks,
thank you
Nick.
so
That
much.
was
Take
great.
care.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.